Hi, I'm John Graham-Cumming. I'm the author of the Geek Atlas. Place number 008 in the book is a lovely half-day walk through the centre of Paris, which in itself may not seem particularly scientific, but at one time every country in the world defined 0 degrees of longitude as passing through their capital. So prior to the early 1900s, when there was an agreement on the degrees of longitude that were going to run from Greenwich as 0, every country had its own. For example, 0 degrees for the Americans was through Washington DC, for the French it was through Paris, for the Germans it was through Berlin. And so in Paris in the 80s it was decided to commemorate this idea that 0 degrees was a French thing, of course, and the way they did it was they laid into the ground, into the pavements and into the roads in Paris, small brass discs that say NS for north-south and Arago in the middle. The north-south bit is obvious, that's the alignment of the line of longitude, the meridian through Paris. And Arago was the man who was the director of the Paris Observatory at the time that this 0 degrees was very, very important. The reason Arago is important is that the French defined the meter based on the distance between the equator and the North Pole running along the Paris meridian. And Arago actually surveyed the distance of the meridian through France from the north all the way to the south and then out into the Balearic Islands near Spain. And then he managed to calculate the distance for a meter with an accuracy of about 5 millimeters by that surveying effort. So for the French, it was very, very important. It was fundamental that this meridian ran through Paris. Now the nice thing is, it actually runs through very, very interesting parts of Paris. You can start at the Paris Observatory, standing at the feet of Arago's monument, which is right there, walk up through the Paris Observatory, which itself is aligned along 0 degrees of longitude, French version, and then up there through the Jardin de Luxembourg, which is where the French Senate is. Off to your right is the Pantheon, where Foucault's pendulum is still swinging. As you carry on, you cross the Seine and you're in the Louvre. And the Musée du Louvre, in the middle of it, there is the meridian passing through, and it passes right near the famous pyramid in the centre there. And if you carry on, you're walking through other lovely parts of Paris. So it's a wonderful way to walk through Paris in a scientific way. Along the way, actually, as you get near to the Paris Observatory, there's an atomic clock where you can set your watch to French time. And then you'll see many of the beautiful sights of Paris just by following this north-south line, and you'll see how much of the city was built around the original meridian. Funnily enough, one final anecdote about that, which is that when the International Longitude Conference happened in Washington DC, every country agreed that Greenwich was going to be the new standard. It made it a lot easier, everyone's maps would start at the same place, except for France, which hung on for a few more years to 0 degrees running through Paris. And I think the French haven't really stopped, because in the year 2000 there was a decision to actually mark the Paris meridian all the way across France with a line of trees and picnics called la meridian verte. And in fact some of the Arago medallions set into the pavement were changed to not say Arago but to say the year 2000 and meridian verte, because some of them got lost or stolen. So the French really, although they use Greenwich, I think they still would like to have their slightly a few degrees off meridian for themselves. I'm John Graham-Cumming, the author of the Geek Atlas, a new travel book published by O'Reilly.